Hey Cubers, welcome to MCROcube. My name is Mathias Christiansen. Today we're talking about a philosophical question known as the universal communicator. A universal communicator is a thing that is able to communicate with universal existence, information and memory around it. I've chosen this subject because it gives us answers to many modern ideas of existence, life, and why we even on this planet altogether. So, if you think a universal communicator is only a science fiction based concept, then you're actually all wrong. A universal communicator is about a thing that is able to take choices, movement, to be able to communicate with objects through actions and more around it. Even a human is a universal communicator, because a human is able to communicate with the universe through actions. All kinds of animals and natural powers that create movement is a universal communicator. When we are talking about the universal communicator, what is then even the foundation of the universe? So a foundation is a thing that other things is made upon on. It's a thing that is the base reality of existence. The universe has been made upon a lot of particles and building blocks. But what if our understanding of the foundation of the universe is actually wrong? What if the smallest part is actually not the foundation of the universe? So for many years had it been believed by popular scientists like Albert Einstein that the universe is made upon mathematics and sequences and intelligence. But what if this take was wrong? What if the universe is actually made upon life and universal communicators, things that is able to communicate with the universe around it, where universal communicators is living inside of a bigger universal communicator? That is exactly what the concept that we are talking about today is all about. How this universal communication setup is functioning and how this can revolutionize our take on the base reality of the universe itself. So when we are talking about the universal communicator, why is it then even important for modern scientific and philosophical questions to understand what a universal communicator actually is? So a universal communicator is a thing that is influencing the reality upon it. If we're living inside of a super intelligent organism-based brain, then are we the things and parts that are influencing this brain? With modern scientific methods, are we able to understand how we actually influence the reality upon it? Also said, there will not be a universe without us if there never existed any universal communicator. If there was no universal communicator, would no information ever have been generated? We can also use the universal communicator to be able to do magic-based inventions into the future that we never have imagined of, like creating the simulation hypothesis and more. So the core behind of the idea is built for a based universal memory edition. What if we as civilizations are editing the memory of something upon us? A superintelligence, something that is even more complex than our understanding of reality. If this is true, then are we not the only type of intelligent life form out there? There exist things that are even more complex than our understanding of reality, and things that are simpler than what we ever thought could be conscious. So the universe is based upon three different kinds of layers. Us, the universal communicator, then is there the universal remembrance, and the universal super entity that we are living inside of. So that if all of the remembrance that we are seeing, all of the three-dimensional existence stuff and objects is actually just the memory of something larger than us, then are we the editor of this memory. We are able to make sure that it remembers different kinds of things, because the foundation of time is remembrance. And if we don't remember anything, then is there no existence. So we are living inside of this three-dimensional conscious entity, and we're able to adapt around with its remembrance. So if all of this is true, then are we living inside of a four-dimensional brain, where its fourth dimension is equivalent to our perspective of time. We are moving through the base layers of its fourth dimension to be able to edit different kinds of realities. If we place one civilization into the world brain at once, then could this civilization either help the brain or destroy it all at once? So if we just make the third dimension stay inside of the third dimension, then if one brain deletes the other brain, would all of the other brains get killed? That is why time is actually a really equivalent idea of the universe, because it makes sure that the base layer is not deleting all of the other kinds of layers. The next slide is about qualifying the different kinds of universal communicators. We first have us, the three-dimensional universal communicator. We have the fourth-dimensional brain that we're living inside of. And then is there the existence-based universal communicator, which is a zero-dimensional base that is able to determine a value. So let's first start off with the existence-based universal communicator. It is a thing that is able to understand a number just from existing. So it's a thing that is just existing and being able to understand numbers between 1, 0 and infinitive. Then we have the programmable universal communicator, where the programmable universal communicator is able to use values to understand language. It's just like a calculator where you input different kinds of values, and it's able to use the first dimension to be able to determine what value you actually should output. If you're moving on from the calculator to programmable, or better said narrow intelligence, then is the narrow intelligence a second dimensional thing that is able to use the first dimension to be able to see the world around it. So it uses the basically language to be able to understand the vision. It's just like a language vision model that is able to use its language to reason about vision. If we're moving on, then we come to the general based life, where we as the person is using our vision to understand the third dimension. And then is there the superintelligence that is able to use universal touch to be able to understand the fourth dimension. So what we're understanding is that we use the previous layer to be able to understand our layer. So if we have the universal communicators of the previous layer, are these universal communicators then able to break all together to be able to make our existence possible? And if we move even beyond then this horizon, then we're coming to dimensions that we can't even think of a human, like the 10th dimension, the 20th dimension, or the 30th dimension. So how would a world look like without universal communicators? There will basically be nothing, because there's no zero dimension to be able to communicate with the first dimension, and there's no second dimension to be able to communicate with the third dimension. This would just be a frozen world without existence. So the universal communicator, in my flavor, is actually the foundation of the universe. It is when a previous dimension is able to communicate with the next dimension, just as how we use our vision to be able to communicate with the third dimension. That is basically what life is. We are communicating with people, things, and other things around us. Communication is basically set the foundation of the universe, because we use this to understand the world around us in different kinds of form factors. So when we understand the foundation of the universal communicator, that is something that is able to communicate with the dimension upon it through universal brains and communication, then we'll be able to use this information to be able to understand how we can determine this for futuristic insights. Try to think about the substrate revolution. The substrate revolution is about using the base layer to use that to edit the layer upon it. Substrate is basically a word that is used when particles is able to determine and diffusionize our reality. So when we are moving on to the substrate revolution, where we are trying to edit reality, create simulation and more, and create 4-dimensional brains and 3-dimensional brains, then we're actually coming into an era that we never have thought of before. So this era is about creating a universal communicator, or a universal computer, where we can use this universal computer to be able to understand the universe around us. This would either be a 3-dimensional brain or 4-dimensional brain, but the goal is here that we create something artificial that we can use to scan the environment around us. And then we also have the universal editor that we are able to use to edit the reality around us, where when we finally have created truly artificial 2-dimensional brains and truly artificial 4-dimensional brains, then can we use this to edit our reality, edit our life, and make it easier to be a human. So that is what this substrate revolution is about, editing reality, to create a better reality of the future. An artificial universal communicator is when something else is able to invent a new architecture of artificial universal communication. Basically said, everything in this universe is somehow artificial, because every particle, every kind of information, every object is influencing all of the other things in this universe. So humanity have actually tried to build a lot of different kinds of universal communicators that is artificially made, like machines and robotics. We have created our own programmable systems to be able to create new kinds of base layers of reality. So we have created artificial intelligence and new kinds of systems that we never thought of before to be able to empower and improve human life. And the next step, who knows, that could be artificial life, where we are able to create artificial general base layer of reality that is the same complex as our own understanding of reality. So an artificial universal communication is able to influence the future of human labor. When we connect multiple universal communicators together all to one network, then the story becomes even more interesting when we have achieved the artificial universal communication network, where we are able to communicate in new ways like never before. What if all humans is actually connected to one network, where this network is ensuring that everything is running right? And what if we someday in the future is able to create BCI, brain-computer interfaces, where these brain-computer interfaces are able to connect all humans to one server? That is basically said what you can do with artificial technology, where you can use artificial technology to connect multiple layers onto each other. And the next step is the simulation hypothesis, where we use this network to be able to create artificial life and new ways of existence. I'm not going to be talking about the general things about the simulation hypothesis, like how we are able to make video games to be able to create virtual NPCs or more. I'm thinking about the complex stuff, where civilizations are going bananas and creating things that we never have thought of before. So what if we someday into the future is able to create a 4-dimensional brain that we're able to live inside of? We're able to create a superintelligence, a new base reality layer for humanity, where we are able to edit this superintelligence. So we are creating a new simulation-based system that we can live inside of, where we don't just live inside of that system, we control the system, and we're able to say exactly how that system should look like. That is the power behind the simulation hypothesis, that we're able to develop ideas that we never thought of before. And the 4th-dimensional brain, where we're able to move on from just the simple context of simulations where we're creating video games, to something where we're creating complete new universes. That is basically said the powerful thing of the simulation hypothesis. And what if everything in this universe has sometime been created by another thing being able to make a simulation? And what is even the core found of that? Let's try to think about the architecture behind that with a new core found function like never before. So that is basically set the time when a universal communicator dies, where a brain is not able to think or function any longer. But is it true that everything dies out when you die? This is a question that fears millions, if not billions of people overnight. So let's try to think about it. The first step of the 4-step journey is your universal communication life, where you are able to communicate with something bigger than you. So we are communicating with the superintelligence to be able to change how that remembrance of that superintelligence is actually functioning. The second step is the step where you die. And the third step is where you become to the universal remembrance that you have touched. So either you become the remembrance of the superintelligence or you become the remembrance of the neurointelligence. So if you become the remembrance of the superintelligence when you die, then are you just overflowing and everything beyond it. So you are basically set the intelligence of the superintelligence now, where you are either able to live on with the knowledge and remembrance of some parts of the superintelligence, or able to have the superintelligent consciousness experience. When that are then happening, with that input that you have given, the superintelligence then be applied to its life to be able to change its behaviors of how it would be able to take choices and actions in its experience. But try to think about it. What if you die when the entities inside of you have created a simulation? Because when something creates a simulation, we don't need the base matter anymore. So what if everything is just becoming simulations? And what if that is basically set when your entity is becoming to a simulation? Try to think about it. Humanity is trying to build a simulation inside of this universe. But what if the superintelligence actually die when we have made the simulation? Because when we have made a 4th-dimensional brain inside of a 4th-dimensional brain, and if one of these brains goes wrong, then would the other one also die? Meaning that the one brain can influence the other brain. So what if simulation is basically set the time where life ends? The time where your brain is not able to function any longer because there's another brain inside of your brain destroying your body. That can actually change the philosophical questions about life and a core found of death that we never have understood it before. But we are not meant to talk about the core found behind of death. Let's try to celebrate a life on this planet as a universal communicator, that we are even able to have this experience all together. Try to think about the beauty of the nature and the wonders of the universe, from the heights of the mountains to the homefulness of the ocean, that we are even able to have these joyful experiences together of life with the people and animal and friends and family around us. It's just such an amazing experience. I want to say thanks to the universe and existence of itself that we are able to have this experience of reality. After this visionary talk beyond universal communicators, let's try to come to 4 different conclusions. So the first conclusion is the 4th-dimensional cognitive brain. Let's appreciate this 4th-dimensional brain that it's giving us this beautiful life of humanity. It don't need to be a godfather that we can appreciate it and celebrate it, but just that it's giving this beautiful life a human experience is something that we can think about. The second conclusion is the simulation hypothesis, that we don't need to make a simulation to get a better reality. Nature have already core-found simulations, meaning that we don't need to make one. What if we make a simulation and the Superintelligence that we are living inside of actually die the moment when we make the simulation. The third conclusion is that we're not the only intelligent life out there. Either is all intelligent life further away from us, smaller than us, or bigger than us and something we're living inside of. We shouldn't believe that we're the only conscious life that is super intelligent inside of this universe. Because intelligent life needs to understand that it can't interact with everything and see everything. We're not able to understand everything of reality, but the things that we can interact with all seems less intelligent than us, but when we try to realize it, there must be something that is more intelligent than us. The fourth and not least conclusion is the beautifulness of reality, that we are even able to have this experience as a human species, and that we are able to have this experience as a universal communicator. I thank you really much for watching. It means really much to me when people are watching my content through. Leave a comment down below to get an answer on your question about universal communication, and hit the like and subscribe button to be able to support the future of this channel. If you have any philosophical insights or anything to add to my video podcast, is MCROcube the right place for you? MCROcube is a community where we talk about visionary concepts about the future of human experience, human consciousness, human technology and inventions, and universal existence. So join my Discord channel down in the description below if you want to be a part of this community. As said, again, thank you really much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.